I'm just a tourist.
Oh, apologies all round then. 6 years.
6 years?
A prequel to a prequel that was almost the equal of the sequel.
Always the Empire here.
It's a TV series that showed Star Wars didn't have to be made exclusively for kids or depressed middle-aged grumps.
Good luck to you.
Andor Season 1.
Do I look thankful to you?
Season 1 of Star Wars Andor is a 12-episode series first released on Disney Plus in 2022, where it starts off fairly slowly and through word of mouth quickly became acknowledged, at least by those who actually watched it, as easily one of the best live-action parts of the Star Wars universe to date. It's part spy series, part thriller, part workplace comedy, part mismatched roommate sitcom, part prison drama, and there's not a single lightsaber-wielding Jedi to be seen. Unless, of course, the Jedi have now developed an invisibility cloak. Well, there's one, and another, and another. Look, maybe that's just overthinking it. However, it is certainly one of those shows where the first few installments are a slow burn, and, like Fred Flintstone at the Nürburgring, it does take a little while to get up to speed.
That's ridiculous.
Cassian Andor starts off in a place where he's pretty much disinterested in fighting back against the Empire, who had killed his adoptive father. But over the course of this season, he will find his Empire-resisting mojo, which does sound like a new energy drink sold as part of a dodgy pyramid scheme.
You insulted my choice of beverage.
There are storylines that span the entire season, and others that run for a few episodes at a time. Andor is a web of plots woven together more skillfully than a spider who's taken a number of extension courses at the Learning Annex.
I know what I'm against. Everything else will have to wait.
It started with the 2016 Star Wars spin-off movie where ILM effects supervisor and yes, the co-creator of Photoshop, John Knoll, suggested a film about the theft of the Death Star plans. That movie, Rogue One, was directed by Gareth Edwards, though American writer Tony Gilroy had come in to help with reshoots late in the production. Rogue One is possibly the least polarizing Star Wars movie since Disney slipped George Lucas a couple of $1 billion in a really, really large envelope. And it was also a very successful movie on its theatrical release. Though that may have just been because I saw it 3 times in a theatre. I mean, there's a ticket, there's a drink, there's some popcorn, times that by 3, it quickly adds up, and you can see how they got to $1 billion. While Rogue One sort of, but not quite, but sort of leads directly into the very first Star Wars movie, now known as Episode 4 A New Hope, almost every new character introduced in Rogue One, well, without explicitly spoiling their fate, let's just say that if you had been roommates with any of them, you'd probably wish that you'd gotten them to write down the Netflix password before they headed off to Scarif.
Rebellions are built on hope.
But watching Stranger Things is based on remembering 83_k, little p, big T, little f, $987%, little v, big S. When Disney was looking to carve out its own streaming empire, it threw vast sums of money at producing content, and a prequel to Rogue One was one of the earliest announced projects, though the original showrunner, Stephen Schiff, would step aside for Tony Gilroy, who had his own ideas. Gilroy's pitch: a Star Wars show that was something that you didn't have to be a fan of Star Wars in order to enjoy it, which is a good call since a vocal portion of Star Wars fans seem to find enjoying Star Wars a difficult concept.
How do you know all this?
Not everyone knows it.
Gilroy told his writer's room, "Don't be reverential to Star Wars, just make something good." Now, if it was as simple as that, then everyone would be doing it. The fact that everything on television is not as writed so goodly as Andor proves that the bestest writing Gilius stuff is not remote control-y easy and stuff and everything like that and stuff. Also, I've just been hired as the showrunner for NCIS Air Force Submarine Corps Arizona. The tagline, which I'm very proud of, boots underwater.
Let's do that.
In Rogue One, Cassian Andor was a ruthless rebel operative who was essential to stealing the plans for the Death Star. 5 years earlier, though, he was not remotely interested in helping the nascent rebellion, who at this time was still made up of disparate groups with different goals and different takes on the best way to push back against the Empire's power grab. Cassian Andor is a thief selling black market parts, but he's also looking for his sister when he's accosted by 2 tough guys who quickly discover that Andor is not somebody you mess around with. He heads back home to Ferrix to see if his adoptive mother, Marva, and her ancient droid retainer, B2EMO, will be his alibi should anybody ask about him. Andor is the type to lean heavily on his friends like Brasso or Bix Caleen, whose history with Andor is complicated. The Empire hasn't completely taken over the galaxy by this point, with Ferrix under the control of a corporation. The 2 dead tough guys were guards, and the security department of their corporate employers look into it. Cyril Khan is an ambitious worm who's obsessed with tracking down the killer, who he identifies as possibly being Cassian Andor, and then he leads an ill-conceived raid on Ferrix, which does not go well for the corpos. Andor had a meeting with Luthen, a buyer for some stolen gear he was selling, but he instead finds that Luthen is looking at Andor as somebody he can use on a job. Meanwhile, after the fiasco on Ferrix, Cyril Khan loses his job and heads back to live with his domineering mother, someone straight out of a 70s sitcom, but without the laugh track. But just to set the scene, Khan is still obsessed with finding Andor. Meanwhile, at the ISB, which is the Empire's in-house security organization, the stolen items that Andor was trying to sell Luthen kicks off an investigation by Dedra. ISB, when they aren't riddled with inter-office rivalries, are interested in the identity of the rebel organizer that they have codenamed Axis. Look, I dig. I once had to find out who kept blocking the toilets at work, and we gave him the codename the Paperback.
I didn't risk my ass for the Starbeth unit. I came for you.
Luthen offers Andor a well-paid job as part of the team, preparing to steal the payroll of an Imperial garrison on the planet Aldhani. Most of the other rebels, led by Vel, are a mite put out at Andor showing up 3 days before the job, and some of them are not very happy when they learn he's being paid. Nemec, however, doesn't care. He's a true believer in the rebellion, where he's using it as an inspiration to write an anti-Imperial manifesto. But truth be told, he's probably more suited to hosting a podcast than actually holding a gun. Skeen, on the other hand, is a troublemaker, who you never really know if you can trust. The job is timed to coincide with the Eye, a natural phenomenon the locals will travel from far away to see. The job does go off without a hitch, well, almost, apart from losing half of the rebels. Skeen, it turns out, can't be trusted and... well, never mind. Andor takes his money and goes back to Ferrix, where, after paying off his debts to Bix and other friends, attempts to get Maarva to leave with him, but she's not having any of it. Meanwhile, Cyril Khan is using his new job to try and track down Andor.
And bring this case to a...
Stop! I don't mean just the talking, I mean stop.
Cyril Khan does remind me of somebody I used to work with, a snotty little worm who kept auditing how many tea bags I would go through during the day. I think he thought I was rebranding them and reselling the tea bags at a healthy profit. But now that I don't work there anymore, yes, I was.
We're just gonna stand here?
While Dedra and ISB feel they're getting closer. Luthen's day job is running a boutique frequented by the likes of Senator Mon Mothma, but that's just a front for their individual work in the rebellion. Luthen's organising spies and mercenaries, while Mon Mothma is financing it from her family fortune, while appearing as an ineffectual senator trying to, politely, hold back the Empire's tyrannical power grab. Her husband Perrin is too busy enjoying the good life to notice his wife's activities, and their teenage daughter is, well, she's a teenager.
It's all about you, isn't it?
Mon Mothma does have a problem in that the Imperials are tightening their grip on the banking system, and the only viable option for moving money around is doing business with a gangster whose only desire is for their children to be introduced for a potential matchup.
No, he's strangely open-minded on this topic.
Dedra interviews Cyril Khan, and he later waits for her outside her office. So if you ever need tips on how to be an absolute slimy worm, then Cyril Khan's your man worm.
Try to follow on the conversation we had last month.
That wasn't a conversation. You were brought in for questioning.
On Ferrix, Dedra interrogates anybody who might know Andor, including Bix. Meanwhile, Luthen has decided that Andor needs to be taken out so he can't give the game away. Andor has been enjoying his freedom on a resort planet but managed to get himself arrested by mistake and is sentenced to 6 years in prison. On the prison world of Narkina 5, every floor is wired with electricity. Either that or Andor would come in second in the air guitar competition. He's put to work assembling machinery under the watchful eye of Supervisor Kino Loy. Nobody wants to rock the boat until they realise they are actually never getting out. And this is what Andor uses to motivate a prison break.
Can't swim!
Andor and fellow inmate Melchi make it out without knowing how many of the others, if any, also got away. History does not record whether Andor managed to take his air guitar trophy with him. It is at this point that we will marvel at how 98% of the characters in this seem to have a full name that runs no more than 4 syllables in total. There's Andor's best mates, Brasso and Bix Kaleen, Cyril Khan, Dedra Miro, Karis Nemec, Kino Loy, Melchi, Luthen Rail, Vel Sartha, Cinta Kaz, Arvel Skeen. My Star Wars universe name would conveniently enough be Stam Fine Reviews, and my Star Trek universe name would be Stam Fine, and my name in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy would be Handra Anderson Fandra Danderson Fine.
The rumors are true.
Maarva has passed away and everybody's using her funeral procession as a way to smoke out Andor. Most of the divergent storylines will converge in this final episode. The ISB think they're going to catch Andor in their net. Cyril Khan thinks he's going to be the hero of the hour, while Luthen has sent Vel and partner Cinta to take him out. Maarva's last words are broadcast at the procession, and they incite a riot.
Fight the Empire!
Andor rescues Bix and engineers an escape for his remaining friends before Luthen finds that Andor has given him another option.
Kill me. Or take me in.
The epilogue of the episode shows what Andor and company were building in prison. So that's wrapped up with a nice, neat little bow. And after all of that, wow.
What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy.
Andor, Season 1, is remarkable for Star Wars in that so much of the time, it doesn't lean so much on existing Star Wars lore.
I don't believe you.
Well, you'll have to try harder.
There are remarkably few characters from previous Star Wars projects, with the exception of the characters from Rogue One.
Setting the bar high, are we?
It's Star Wars, and there are Imperial officers, stormtroopers, and TIE fighters, but there are also rebels who are not at this stage fully allied with each other. And for once, it's a Star Wars set mainly in places that you haven't seen before. Like sand, Tatooine gets everywhere, but not here.
That's amusing.
And Coruscant and the Senate Chambers are practically the only location that's familiar to anybody who's seen other Star Wars films.
I was coming to find you.
Here I am.
In between the various movie trilogies, Star Wars video games from LucasArts often filled the void, and they would take popular genres such as a first-person shooter or real-time strategy game, and then make a Star Wars version set in the Star Wars universe. Several of Disney's Star Wars projects have followed this idea, with Rogue One being based on war movies like The Dirty Dozen, Solo being a caper movie, Skeleton Crew being Goonies-esque adventure. Andor is a thriller series, first and foremost. You know, good people die, bad people die. The Empire's rumbling along in the background while Andor tries to survive.
Working with other people is never easy.
Cassian Andor himself is ruthless, a little paranoid, and while he's fearful, he doesn't let that stop him from what he has to do.
But there's a difference between fear and losing your nerve.
His turnaround from being an opportunistic thief to a committed rebel is fascinating to watch. The change from being someone who mostly thought of himself to being spurred into joining the fight, someone who was almost shamed into action. Diego Luna plays the galaxy's second biggest grump.
It's me.
Someone whose change you become invested in, despite you actually knowing how the story ends.
So what do I sacrifice? Everything!
Stellan Skaarsgard as Luthen is a character who's even more ready to kill in order to get his way. He was prepared to have Andor killed to protect his identity, and ready to give away another rebel leader just to keep his reluctant informant in place.
I'm starting to think we're in over our heads.
Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma reprises a role she'd played previously in Rogue One, and in a blink and you'll miss it deleted scene from Revenge of the Sith, Mothma has that practiced diplomatic smile, all while she's partially funding the rebellion.
What?
Denise Gough as Dedra Meero is something we don't see much of in Andor, a competent Imperial officer. Meero plays the internal office politics very well, but that's helped by the fact that her colleagues are a shower of idiots wearing jodhpurs. The Imperials are like any typical totalitarian dictatorship staffed by morons. Most of the time, the dumbest, chunkiest shit floats to the top.
Could I be made prefect? The title, I know it doesn't come with extra pay. You can wear a ball gown if you'd like.
While Kyle Soller is the show's biggest mystery as Cyril Khan. What the hell is he on about?
Are you stalking me?
All that's missing from his rescue of Dedra is Joe Cocker singing Up Where We Belong. Cyril Khan's a character who starts off as someone who's given a uniform and then proceeds to be a real dick about it. Then he loses that uniform and tries to get it back by sucking up to the Empire. And does he have a thing for Dedra?
What's left to keep you here?
The rebellion.
Fiona Shaw as Maarva is a character filled with piss and vinegar, a former scavenger who took in Andor as a child and, in her dotage, wants to be a rebel.
Whatever it takes.
Forrest Whitaker reprised his role as Saw Gerrera. Andy Serkis now appears in his second Star Wars role, and this time he didn't have to wear the mocap suit at all, though maybe he wore one under his prison uniform just to feel more comfortable. In a relatively small role is Christopher Fairbank, who may well be one of those actors who's appeared in more franchises than the Wilhelm scream. He's in Star Wars, Batman,
What are you?
Marvel Cinematic Universe, Doctor Who, Sapphire and Steel, The Professionals, Alien, Pirates of the Caribbean, and of course, our Vita Zapet. There are also lots of people known for various shows made in Britain and the US, Doctor Who and Game of Thrones for example, so people like Faye Marsay, Anton Lesser, Varada Sethu, Adria Hona, and Ebon Moss-Bachrach.
As host and provider, I was offended by this.
Some swears, so time to click off if bad language offends thee.
Don't you say a word. I mean it.
The swears begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What are they saying?
Maarva's posthumous call to arms was originally intended to be, quote, fuck the Empire, unquote. But she doesn't say, quote, fuck the Empire, unquote. She says, quote, fight the Empire, unquote. And somehow it got lodged into my brain that she said, quote, fuck the Empire, unquote. But really she just said, quote, fight the Empire, unquote.
You can't be serious.
But I checked the disc version and the Disney Plus version. And yes, it's, quote, fight the Empire, unquote. And not, quote, fuck the Empire, unquote. The ruder version was the original intention, but Disney asked for it to be less rude before the show's completion. I mean, either F works, but maybe if Patrick Stewart was in this, he might ask the writers if his character could do both.
He doesn't understand you.
So, to reiterate, Maarva says, quote, fight the Empire, unquote, and not, quote, fuck the Empire, unquote.
You always say that.
One thing about Andor is, despite it looking super crisp, it doesn't have that aggressively fake look that so many science fiction series can often have, whereas Mandalorian and some other Star Wars series lent heavily on stagecraft, or the volume, where basically you have virtual sets built around an array of massive television screens. Andor went practical wherever possible. It's not 100% practical, but, a lot of the time. The streets of Ferrix were a giant set. Aldhani was filmed in the Scottish Highlands. Part of Coruscant was shot around the Barbican Centre in London. And like a lot of older British science fiction series, they shot in various quarries.
Well, you're half right. The Empire doesn't play by the rules.
Of course, there is still a ton of computer-generated imagery all throughout the program. It's just done so well that it very rarely pulls you out of the action, like so many programs with bad CG, or at least really obvious CG.
What will it cost?
Andor's presentation is uniformly excellent, from the production design, the cinematography, visual effects, costume design, acting, and direction.
Can be challenging.
You carry it gracefully.
If there's anything at all to criticise, it's that all of this takes so goddamn long to make that the 3-year gap between seasons of a show this good is really painful to endure.
Let's call it war.
Andor, score by Nicholas Britell, gives us a Star Wars score that doesn't lean on established music from John Williams, yet it's a musical backdrop that does not at all feel out of place in a Star Wars program. The original plan was for a multi-season run, but Tony Gilroy had said that filling in Andor's story would be completed by the end of the show's second season, which would more or less bring us straight into Rogue One. I'm very much looking forward to the second season, which of course was released after this video was posted. I have tingles in my fingers waiting for season 2. I'm not sure whether that's just because I'm excited, or my circulation is poor, or that I got my hand caught in a mousetrap. I think it's actually probably a little of each.
I'm preparing for every outcome.
Rather than just tell another adventure story revolving around a Jedi, Andor goes into thriller mode, channeling the likes of a much better budgeted version of a show like Babylon 5 or Blake 7.
We'll use the same rope to hang you, whether it's for a plasma coil or 20 million credits.
Andor is one of those instances where every element comes together to produce a worthy entry into Star Wars canon, where it doesn't require you to have watched 5 other projects for any of it to work, where it's just very easy to recommend to somebody who doesn't necessarily like Star Wars, which yes, may seem to describe a significant portion of Star Wars fandom.
Why is this good?
What can you do? In my case, I'm just going to watch Andor and enjoy it.
I'll find you.
If you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, or check out some of our other videos.
I've realized that life was worth living.